Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight Series. My name is Kelly Pice. I'm with Action Coach Tidewater, Virginia. And today I have John Hewitt with me. He is currently the founder and CEO of Loyalty Brands, but he's also been a founder of some other big brands that you're probably aware of, and I'm sure we'll get to that in the interview. Today, we're going to talk about his experience and his business journey, his experience as an entrepreneur, and some of the challenges and best practices that he'll share with us. And we'll really get a peek at what it's really like to build and operate a very successful business. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when we drop new interviews just like today. So welcome, John. I really appreciate your time with us today.
My pleasure, Kelly. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so please just give us a brief overview of your background and tell us a little bit about Loyalty Brands.
Well, I'm going to give you my 55 years briefly. I started when I was at University of Buffalo working part-time for H&R Block. I loved it. 12 years later, I was running 250 H&R Block locations, loving life. And my dad was the CFO of a public company, and he liked the little Apple computer he bought by mail better than the mainframe that was running his public company. And he decided we should computerize tax. After about 9 months, he convinced me to join him, and we quit our jobs and built the first tax software for an Apple computer back in 1981. No one wanted it, way ahead of its time. Got blessed and found a company here in Virginia Beach called Mel Jackson. And Mel Jackson had died. We bought 6 offices from his widow. I moved my family down here in August of 1982. The biggest blessing is the weather here's a lot nicer than up in Buffalo. So I've been here ever since. And we merged the two companies, changed the name to Jackson Hewitt, went public, and 15 years later sold it for $483 million. It was my first chain of more than top 100 retail chain in the country. And I looked around, had a non-compete that covered most of the United States, but it didn't cover Canada because Jackson Hewitt's never gone to Canada. Having grown up in Buffalo, I knew the Canadian tax system. So we opened Liberty Tax in Canada. And within 3 years, became a top 100 retail chain in Canada. So now I built one of the top 100 in US, one of the top 100 in Canada. When my non-compete ended, came back to the United States. And now I had to compete against my own name, my own software, my own system at Jackson Hewitt. And yet, not only did we grow faster than Jackson Hewitt, we grew faster than Jackson Hewitt and H&R Block combined. We opened over 4,000 offices in 12 years, almost an office a day for 12 years.
Wow.
And top 10 fastest growing franchisor ever. Again, public company, again, worth $500 million. Sold my stuff. And now we started Loyalty Brands. And Loyalty Brands has 8 different franchise systems. So that's, and the fastest growing is Zooming Grooming, mobile dog grooming. And it's going to be my 3rd top 100 retail chain in the country. I've already founded Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, now Zooming Grooming. They say 3rd time's the charm. Within 5 years, we'll have 3,000 vans, be a household name around the country. So it'll be my 3rd household name, my 3rd top 100 retail chain. Just loving life and blessed.
Yeah, that is really awesome. I mean, obviously, Action Coach is a franchise as well. And so, franchises is a great business structure for those that want to become entrepreneurs. And wow, what amazing success you've had in building those franchise brands. Currently, so Loyalty Brands, what's your role with the business?
Founder, CEO.
Okay, so the day to day. I mean, when you look at your role, what's the kind of stuff that you do? What are you spending on the business versus in the business, and strategy, planning, things like that?
Well, I'm somewhere between a mentor and a master salesperson. I brought in 5,200 franchisees in my career, and so I've mentored thousands and thousands of people. So I'm involved in training, answering questions, training the support staff of all the brands and the CEOs. And I meet every franchisee as they're coming into the system, most before they join us, too, because Kelly, we're not just selling something that you buy something and walk away. This has to be right for you, and because if it's not right for you, you can only blame two people, yourself or me. And guess who you're always going to blame first? So what we're not in the business of selling franchise. We're in the business of finding the right people and awarding a franchise. And so it's not a sales process, it's an award process. And part of that pruning and making sure that we have the right people is they meet me before they come on board.
To do so. Are most of your brands then B2C brands or B2B or a combination?
We're all B2C.
You're trying to find the right fit, but what's that look like to you? You've sold a lot of franchises. You probably have a pretty good idea of what the right fit is.
Yeah, what I tell people in not just in franchising, but in life in general, is find something you love to do, work hard, persevere. Life's too short. On Monday morning, if you're going to work, you're not looking forward to it, you're going to the wrong place. And it should be thank God it's Monday. If you're living a thank God it's Friday life, that's not a good life. Life's again too short. So find something you love to do, perseverance, work hard. There's nothing worthwhile comes without hard work. So you have to work hard, and then perseverance is the most important quality in anything, in a personal relationship, business relationship, in a team sport. Everyone gets knocked down. The winners just get up each and every time and keep going.
Yeah. So, what are some of the other brands you have? You mentioned the pet grooming, but what others do you have?
Yeah, our second fastest growing is ATAX, which is a direct competitor of Jackson Hewitt and H&R Block, and we're growing faster. Once again, we're growing faster than Block or Jackson Hewitt or Liberty with ATAX. Our third fastest growing is roofing. We're in the roofing business, and it's roofing, solar, and siding. And that's our newest business. We've just been doing it a year and a half. And I love the business for a lot of reasons, but one reason is there's been so many more storms in the 21st century per year than there were in the 20th century. So there's these hailstorms and windstorms and hurricanes and tornadoes that tear roofs up, and most of it's covered by insurance. So that's a great, if it's paid for by insurance or the government, then it's a great business, sort of like a tax refund.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and solar is tax deductible, and that's the best sales phrase in the United States, is saying something's tax deductible. But also the another brand that Loyalty Business Brokers. There are hundreds of thousands of real estate brokers in this country. Mm-hmm. But even though there's over 30 million small businesses, 33 million small businesses, there's only 4,000 businesses that buy and sell businesses as opposed to buy and sell personal homes. So there's a lot of opportunity in that industry. And one thing I've learned about that industry is many mom and pop businesses, they just shut their business down. They don't know they have something to sell. So a third of the time we're going to people and say, what's your exit strategy? What's your succession plan? And most of them, it was just going to shut it down. So we changed a lot of people's lives and getting them some equity out of their business before they leave it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see that too. I mean, about 95% of small to medium-sized businesses in the US can't sell, even when they try to sell, because they haven't built the structure properly to sell. They haven't built an asset that somebody would want to buy. So absolutely. And what a shame somebody works 15, 20 years in their own business and they just got to shut the doors when they're done. I mean, that's almost criminal, right? It shouldn't be that way. So it's awesome that what you're doing. So, I'm always curious. Well, first of all, franchising. Tell the audience. I mean, you obviously love franchising. That's what you've been doing. I love it too. I think it's a great framework. Why is franchising such a good model for business owners?
Before I say that, Kelly, let me say this, that although I love the model, and I've been doing it for 55 years, and the biggest mistake I made when I started Mel Jackson Hewitt was not franchising initially. And I didn't really start to explode until I started franchising. Most franchisors fail.
Mhm.
So you got to be careful, because in this country, and Kelly, can I give you a quiz, a
Sure.
short quiz? There are 4,000 franchisors in the country, and to be in the top 50% largest, 2,000. Guess how many units you have to have?
Uh, an individual franchisee has to have
A franchisor,
a franchisor.
franchisor. Yeah,
Um, in the U.S.,
in the U.S.
uh, 50.
Yeah, very small. It's 20.
Yeah.
So most and the standard in the industry is, or in franchise, people say you got to get to 100 before you're successful. And so there aren't even 20% that are successful. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
But when you're in a great system, when you're in a McDonald's or a Jackson Hewitt or in a Zooming Grooming, you got to be careful, because it's our job as a franchisor to give you the best system in the industry.
Mhm.
And it's your job then, if I do my job, and I've been doing that for 55 years with many companies, if I do my job, your job is to listen. And so the only people out of 5,200 people that I brought in, 5,200 individual franchisees over the last 55 years, 1,000 have become millionaires and 1,000 have gone out of business.
Mhm.
And it didn't matter how smart they were. It didn't matter how educated they were. It didn't matter how experienced they were. What only meant one thing matters, and it's so simple. It's painfully simple. I create a recipe, you follow the recipe.
That's right.
Do not
Follow the system.
waver from what I tell you. And so it's that simple. And yet, in Kelly, I brought in 5,200 franchisees. Not one, not a no one has ever listened 100%.
Yeah.
The best listen 98%, and the people that go out of business, the losers, they listen less than 90%. When
Yeah.
you don't listen, it's going to cost you time or money or both. I've either made or seen every mistake that you could even imagine.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the benefits of a franchise is mistakes have happened in the past and they've been fixed. And so, you have that roadmap to success. We always say follow the system. It's either they're not following the system or they're not doing the activity levels that they need to do to be successful. So yeah. But you're absolutely right. Not every franchise, they're not all equal. You have to really do your due diligence in the franchise industry because there are so many out there, right? So that kind of leads me to marketing, which is something that's vital to every business, and often it's an area that many businesses struggle with. We're a B2B type of business, and that's a different thing than a B2C. But so I'm curious, as you're selling those franchises as a franchisor or you're awarding them, what percentage of your sales or of your budget typically gets reinvested back into your marketing budget?
Well, it depends at what stage they are in their growth, right? When you're a startup, in that first month, 90% of your budget's in marketing.
Mhm.
But for example, I mean, I think Zoom and Grooming isn't easy to think about, right? When we start, we have to fill up those days of dog grooming, and so we spend money getting those slots filled. But 90% of them come back 6 weeks later,
Right.
on average. So pretty soon, if you only have one van, you don't have to do any marketing, right? Almost any marketing, because you're full with just people coming back. So if it depends. So if you look at just one company and one van and one location, the marketing slides as you get more mature.
Mhm.
But if you're adding vans or adding offices or adding, then your marketing maintains at least a certain level. So I would say that the average, once you're in business over a year, the average in our portfolio is about 6% of the every dollar that's paid and received from a customer goes back into marketing for new customers.
The marketing,
And it's our job to get you, and this is where I've really been the most successful in my career, is our average cost per new customer is lower than our competitors. So it costs us less. Every dollar we spend is more effective. So
Right.
if we spend $20,000, we're going to get 30% more customers than our competitor.
Right. And then the repeat business is so important. And so having a model that is built on repeat business, like the dog grooming, right? Brilliant, because they have to get groomed all the time. And if you do a great job, it's like getting your haircut, right? They find the right barber and they're going to come back to them. So
Right.
pretty brilliant.
Yeah,
So,
it's almost mailbox money.
yeah. And so when you look at, the success of your marketing, it's not just that initial success of getting a new customer, it's the lifetime value of that customer that they're providing to that business as well. We spent a bunch of time focusing on the business and some of your brands, sharing the best practices for the audience. I'd like to take a step back and dive into your journey a bit more. From looking at your LinkedIn, you've been an entrepreneur pretty much your whole adult life, it seems like. So why did you choose that route versus working for someone else or continuing to work for somebody else?
Well, I give my dad all the credit for that. My dad, I was born when he got out of the Army, World War II, and had his college education paid, went to Michigan State, and he had 4 children by the time he got out of school. And he always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but he grew up poor during the Depression, and his parents had died before he turned 20, and he never could afford it. And so he always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And he got the chance when I was in college. He finally had enough money, and he had enough. He was going to partner with me and buy a H&R Block franchise. So in 1969, he called up H&R Block and said, lived in a suburb of Buffalo called Hamburg, and he said, we'd like to buy Hamburg as a franchise. And they said, well, as a matter of fact, we're going to open a company store there. And why don't you have your son take the course and work for us? And so I did. So again, he was delayed. But now, 12 years later, when he bought that Apple computer, he was wealthy enough. And I was running 250 offices, very high in block management and skilled. And so it took him almost a year to convince me to leave. I was so happy at Block. But so he started me on my entrepreneur journey, and I've changed so many lives. There's nothing more rewarding than changing lives. I was watching Denzel Washington did a commencement, and he said, and the last point was, people, who the most selfish people in the world are? He said, people that help others, that improve lives. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, because they're so happy. There's nothing more rewarding. Kelly, when I was a kid in high school, I was so cocky. I knew I was going to get rich. And I thought I'd just make a few $1 million and retire. But I quickly learned the journey is the joy. What would I do? There's nothing as much fun as changing people's lives. So they got to kill me to stop me.
Yeah. So true. And so as you look back on that journey, John, what's been the most memorable roadblock or hurdle that you were challenged with that you were forced to overcome?
I've had so many, and if your listeners want a free copy of my book, they can get it at Loyalty Brands. But I've had so many mistakes. We almost went bankrupt twice. Once it was self-induced, and once it was caused by the IRS. So in 55 years, the IRS had one horrible year where they almost destroyed Jackson Hewitt, and they demolished H&R Block. I mean, it was really a long story. But so a couple of times we almost went bankrupt. We've I've had internal battles in both of my companies with my investment banker, or my not my investment banker, but my private equity. Private equity has this standard view that a founder can't last, that he can only go so big, and then you got to replace him with a suit. And so each of my companies, I ran into that battle with a private equity. And fortunately, I learned my lesson the first time. So second time, I have controlling stock in my companies. So they couldn't battle as well when I have control of the company. But so I would say battling for control of my own company, that was it at Jackson Hewitt, when the IRS almost destroyed the industry, was the toughest, the toughest from a year that I had in my
Yeah.
55 years.
All right, so let's fast forward a bit and look at what comes next. Where do you see loyalty brands in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, within 5 years, we're going to be my third $500 million company. You know, I founded two companies that became worth about 500 million. We're going to be our several of our brands will be growing fast, but nowhere the by far the fastest is going to be Zooming Grooming. We're going to have 3,000 vans across the United States and be a household name, just as much as Jackson Hewitt is a household name, tax service. That's again, they say third time's a charm. And I don't say that lightly. You know, it took me 12 years to get 4,000 offices at Liberty. So it looks like it's going to take 8 years to get 3,000 vans at Zooming Grooming.
Yeah. That's awesome though. So when you think of the future in business, it's important to address the topic of building great teams, obviously. So what's been your approach to hiring and retaining team members?
Tom Watson Sr. said, the founder of IBM said, give me 100 great engineers or 100 people with great attitude. And I'll take the people with great attitude. You can teach engineering. You cannot teach attitude. And one of my greatest failures in my life is trying to change people's attitude. I'm 0 for whatever it's been, 0 for 100. I mean, I've had some great people, but they just had a bad attitude in it. And I've never been able to get anyone changed. They've changed for an hour, a week, a month, but they go right back into that bad attitude. So when we hire, Kelly, we first look for attitude and fitting in our culture.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how important is having an intentional culture in your business?
Oh, I'm so fanatical. I do things in culture that I've never seen anyone else do. And I'll let you steal these ideas, because all you do is coach businesses. That's what you're good at, right? So one of the things we do is we have a culture committee, right? We have a culture committee that every week we have a weekly call, and they do the call. And then they think about parties or events or offerings to work inside the company. So I invented we'd have a pad of paper with the principal was on each sheet, and there was a blank for the name and a blank for what happened. And if someone violated a principle, you would put their name on it and check which principle or principles they violated, and then what they did, and give it to them. If someone actively lived up to a principle, because I believe firmly that principles are more important than policies, then you wrote them up and checked the box and wrote them up. And I'll tell you that when you walked around the corporate headquarters at Loyalty, or Liberty rather, everyone had them posted in their office. Even some of them put up the negative ones. And as a leader, you have to set the example. You have to be the highest principled person in your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. We have 14 points of culture, and we always say we hold each other accountable to it, and try to live by it. And when we help business owners develop the culture in their businesses, because some will say they have a culture, but they don't have anything written down. It's just like, what's that culture, And if you don't have an intentional culture, one will emerge, probably one that you don't want. And so as we work with them with that, we always tell them, and you have to hire on culture over skill, because you can teach skill all day long, but you cannot teach that culture, right? It has to be something that they're aligned with. So that is some great comments. So learning, continuous learning. I'm sure you've had a learning curve, incredible learning curves throughout your your time as an entrepreneur. What's one book you're reading now or you've read most recently?
I'd rather give you my favorite authors
Okay.
long term, because I have on my website, I have 20 book recommendations, and they're always changing.
Okay.
Right? But the best all-time authors are Dale Carnegie and Peter Drucker, Drucker. Those are the best I've ever read. I agree with everything they've ever said. And again, I'm constantly reading and updating my reading list. But my daughter-in-law asked me a couple of years ago what she should get my son for Christmas, and I said, "What book?" And I said, "Anything Dale Carnegie."
Yeah, yeah. So, if you had to choose one area of your business, the loyalty brands business that you could immediately improve tomorrow, what would it be?
Ourselves. I'm not. I've 55 years. I've always been in the fastest growing part of my industry, whatever industry I was in, and I don't fear the competitors. I fear about execution ourselves. Whenever we fail to achieve a goal, it's always ourselves. So a continued commitment to ourselves in every way. That means hiring right, training right, firing people that don't fit in, and monitoring. And if you're not monitoring, it's not happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get to the final question for today, how can others learn more about loyalty brands and get in contact?
LoyaltyBrands.com. All the links you want, including my weekly webinar where I give advice to aspiring entrepreneurs.
Final question. What inspires you most these days?
Improving people. Our mission statement, my mission statement for the company is the same as my mission statement for our talk, right? Having fun, improving lives. Life's too short. You gotta enjoy every day, enjoy the journey, and there's nothing more satisfying than improving lives.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that 100%. So, well, John, that wraps up the interview. Thank you so much. A lot of great nuggets today for the viewers. I really appreciate it.
Been my pleasure. Thank you, Kel.